highlighted in a certain way. I just wondered why you portrayed that the way you did on both of those graphics. Maybe when you go through it and start scrolling down, I'll just point
Okay,
out.
you'll tell me.
Yeah.
And what I would like you to do, I have you on my screen. If you ever happens that as I'm talking to you and you have questions or you have something that you want me to talk more about it, just put your hand on so that I know, and then we can go directly into what interests you, you know. So okay, so then I think we'll start. So let me just talk a little bit about, you read a little bit what I said about 0 point. Did you memorize it? Can you recite it for me? Yeah, I would like you to memorize everything that I said, or write. It will make it simple because then I can ask you and me talking about it. But anyway, I'm kidding you. But what am I saying is that, did you get to read a little bit the thing about 0 point?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. Because 0 point is the beginning and the end and the completion of the study. You know how we started, and many years ago. We started just in the chair, or starting standing and talking about the metrics and so forth. And the whole thing has been an evolution of going deeper and deeper and deeper into 3 dimensions, and then getting into the consciousness. Remember that you have, during the years, I've given you many papers that has been written that I even forgot myself that it were written. Remember that it was written about the 10 teachers of Unity and Motion, that it was one about the 10 teachers, which is very lovely. And then remember that you also have the 10 dimensions and the 10 principles before the 10 dimensions and the 10 principles and the 10 waves. And then the dimensions came more clearly. And then after the dimensions became more clearly, many aspects of Unity and Motion became more clear. And it began to show itself in its transcendence as what it really is. It is what we said it is. It's a new consciousness. And a new consciousness, it sounds like a term or a word, but it's a big deal if you're thinking about that we have been in the linear consciousness in our humanity from the beginning of time. In the entire evolution of what has been human has been actually our unfolding as consciousness to the point that we got to it into a new consciousness. So it is an extraordinary, meaningful statement, and what we have working is expressing the whole scenario of what that is. And it needs to be, as I told you before, it needs to have a scenario, because the only scenario that we have in our past existence for before 30 years has been the scenario of linear consciousness. And the scenario of linear consciousness is very complex, because it's saturated with interpretations of duality, as we know very well. And it escalates itself into endless discussion, endless complexities, endless relativities, and the mind function in that place is almost, it's complex because it always wanted to come back with a familiar, and now we are in a new consciousness that they have nothing to do with that. So we are learning and receiving and experiencing and sifting through within ourselves to be able to be autonomous inside of the new consciousness, in order not to have to be jumped back and forth into different worlds, and to allow the world that we live into to become more and more present with this new sense of being that it's the Garden of Eden. I will return to the Garden of Eden. I will return to the chosen race. We are the chosen race now. We are all the unity of the planet. We are all the things that have been projected through time as certain aspects of consciousness are now existing, not as the projection, but as the reality itself. And it is a little bit startling when you get with the reality itself, because when we heard it before and we experience it in some degree as a projection of the consciousness, we all received it because it corresponded to an essential part of our being. But we didn't receive that as the new consciousness. We received it as being information that will bring us closer and closer to home. We didn't receive it as home. And now we're home, so it's different. So the switching that we're going through and the shifting is to allow the mind to become free from the interpretation of all those things and to be able to, little by little, to become present with the reality itself. So the projections that created and that receiving disappear, and it becomes more and more realistic because we are in the presence of life as the new being, as the fulfillment of the new being. And it's a big deal, because otherwise what happens that the linear consciousness wants to make everything relative and receive things as information. And then they put it in a little container in the mind and see, oh yeah, this is another part of the containment of the mind. And then when you do that, then you bypass the whole thing, because you created innocently an interpretation of something that is relative inside of the consciousness, and it's not truly realistic. So the reason that it's important to be with the realistic aspect that we're talking about is because the mind begins to transform itself in that comprehension, and then everything becomes different in life because we become synchronized with existence. And that's a big deal. And the synchronicity of existence, everything that we want, as we said earlier, is in the presence of ourselves. Everything is known, everything is felt, everything is understood. So it's a different consciousness. So anyway, the reason that we wanted to go to 0 point balance is because 0 point balance is the beginning and the study, the beginning and the completion of the study. So we did go through last time, and I wanted to go through again. And then as we get through the graphics, if it is something that you would like to know more about it, or you would like to understand more about it, or you have questions about it, please stop me. Because if one of you have questions, means that all in some degree have questions perhaps, but we don't know that we have a question. So when somebody creates a question, then, oh, I see. The answer becomes much more larger than what we thought the question was, and therefore becomes more meaningful to all of us. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to get up now into this share screen. That's what I'm doing, right, Elena?
Yes, share
I
screen.
get out of there, and then here I am, share. Now it says share.
Yes, so share.
Go share.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we are. And I'm still have you all in the side. How lovely. You all look very wonderful though, too.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So anyway, here we are, 0 point balance. Unveiling our immanent reality of light, love, and wholeness. You know yet what immanent reality means, yet? And we talk about many times, but I think that after we finish with all this, I'm going to start giving you questions and answers that I would like to answer to see, do you know what that means? And then I'm going to answer the answer in another place. So then after you read it, you'll find out if you know it, and then you check it out. And then when you check it out, you'll know it. And then when I ask you, do you know what immanent reality means? So anyway, do I have access to your voice, or I'm completely shut down for hearing you now? Do I? No, I can't hear you, right? Or I can hear you.
You can hear us if
wonderful.
if we're not muted. But
all right.
Most of us are muting. Cristiam, do you think you can pull that to the top of your screen, the bar of that browser? Yeah, no, okay. I'm not going to make you do it, but I just thought if you could
Oh, I see, all the way up here.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I'm getting less. I'm getting to know a little bit more about everything. I have a tutor, and I'm learning very slowly, but it's happening. So anyway, immanent reality is the reality that came into being when the new consciousness came into being, and it's a reality that is all permeating, as we always thought it was, but it is all permeating because we are, for the first time, in the presence of the real future, not the future that we projected in the linear consciousness, the real future They correspond to our connection to everything. Quantum entanglement. We are inside of quantum entanglement, and we are inside of the unity of all things. And for the first time, we are in the presence of God, not as something external for ourselves, but actually being the very thing that we are ourselves. So it's a divine thing. So immanent reality means the reality that it is, that permeates all things, material and immaterial, with the love of God, and it's the ever-present nature of the new consciousness. We are in paradise. Yes, so I think it's or the Garden of Eden, whatever you wanted to call it. We are in it, and it's nice for we begin to find out questions. If you ask me, so what is paradise, or what is the Garden of Eden? Why are we Garden of Eden? Why we were not before? So if those questions are up to your mind, I would like to ask me, so then we can clarify it. Yeah, beautiful. So far so good. I have no questions about it. Remember this beautiful graphic that we used to have, but it didn't have central crown. So Carolina just put it in because remember the central crown didn't exist in the beginning of Unity and when we practice. So it came in lately, and central crown is actually the Trinity, this Trinity that you have here. And as you know, is made up of crown, consciousness, and unity, the three dimensions, and the tree of life and everything. Yes? So then we're going to that one. And then this is what we wrote last time.
I have a
and
question, Cristiam.
You have a question?
Yeah.
This is the great.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you're here. Yeah, absolutely. We have the question. All right, whatever.
Okay.
So tell us, darling.
So when we say infinite reality, quantum entanglement, so that is within the love of God, or paradise, or Garden of Eden. But couldn't that be our mindset all the time if we want it to be?
Say that again. What was the last thing? Could it be that?
So when you put it that way, it sounds like a place, right? But in our own mindset, couldn't we have that frame of mind all the time?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I mean. Yes. But in reality, you see, when we put it in a place in the past, in the linear consciousness, we put it in a place that was outside of ourselves. Heaven was the kingdom of heaven. It was said that it was at hand. It never said that it was the very nature of our life in that time, because it was said 2,000 years ago. It was promised. It was the promised land. So the kingdom of heaven was at hand, was projected as that. Then paradise was projected inside of the Genesis as another place, and so forth. So it was projected into places. So our mind made places of those projections.
Like a construct, right?
Like construct. Yeah, that's what the linear consciousness did.
But now it's there. It's not something to be achieved. It's already here.
It's already here, exactly. And you are the presence of heaven. We are the presence of heaven. We are the presence of paradise.
It's inside us.
It's inside of us. Whatever, and the only complexity that we had in the linear consciousness was that in the linear consciousness, we thought that everything was going to be, that we were going to receive from external. And we knew a little bit, but we didn't know for sure until we know now that everything that we thought that it was external, it's actually internal. So everything that we were going to receive, in reality, come from inside of ourselves, and then we're experiencing externally. But it's not external at all. It's actually the natural union of our awareness matching the very thing that corresponds to our consciousness as a fulfilled sense of self. Fulfilling the new consciousness is the fulfillment of the self with capital S, in which the innocent personality that we associated ourselves with it was lovely, but it's too small as it really is in the reality itself, because each of us in the reality of self now still have a personality. Remember, we talk about that is individual, holistically beautiful, perfect, but also we are the whole. So we are the whole reality in each of us expressed individually and holistically as a simultaneous event. So heaven, the kingdom of heaven, the Garden of Eden, everything is in here. We are in the presence of that. And most of us are beginning to see it, because for many people, innocently, it's still like, there is too much trauma to be able to perceive the reality of what's going on, because in evolutionary consciousness, we were always entrapped inside of a system that it was constantly fluctuating between from good and bad, good, I like this and I like this, and so forth. And the fluctuation always occupy the frame of reality itself. So immanent reality was experienced very gently in a few moments in our life. It wasn't the continuity of its existence as it is now. So the kingdom of heaven, it means the mind being free from the confinements that existed in the search of consciousness inside of the realms of good and evil, which will be the same as saying the consciousness searching inside of the realms of duality between this and that. So our entire evolution was based inside of the search, and then it became fulfilled at a certain moment by our own escalation, but also by the time that it needed to occur, because it was all predicted. The kingdom of heaven was expected, because that's the second coming, the idea of the second coming of Buddha, or the second coming of even the idea of the Messiah, or the idea of the second coming of Christ, was nothing other than coming into correspondence with the resolution of something that it was promised, but it was never really experienced as really being fulfilled. So the fulfillment of all those predictions in time became the actual existence of that that correspondence of communion with consciousness, in which we became present with everything there is, and free from the mind projecting time as something that it was different, that was occupying the moment of life with something other than the perfection itself. Yeah, so anyway, we'll continue with it. Everything is present, okay? Are we okay with this, what I'm just saying? Wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you beginning to become more comfortable, aware, and conscious of the difference between the linear mind that sees everything from the perspective of a dualistic interchange, and the mind that sees everything from the perspective of holistic perception or unity? Are you beginning to see that externally in the world, in yourself? Are you beginning to sense that the world is going? We are already in the new world, and even though everything seems to be very contemporarily confused, as it is right now, I mean, politics and everything, but everything is wanting to unfold inside of a new field in which the new world is becoming more continual, present, and available for all humanity. So anyway, since you don't ask me the question, I'm going to say that yes, that you all are aware. Are you beginning to feel that? Yeah. So then I'll continue with it, because so then all those, every join every graphic that I'm going to be showing you today is an expression of 0 point, because in 0 point, in reality, the meaning of 0 point is an expression that it has no meaning other than a fusion with something that is all permeating. 0 point is like a light that it becomes interconnected with everything. So that's what 0 point means. It means our communion with universal balance, our communion with life, our communion with the new consciousness, our communion with 0 point balance as the definition of the beginning of the study, and so forth. Everything that I'm going to show you today are going to be definition of 0 points. And in the beginning, it may seem a little bit confusion, but the reality is that 0 point is like a facet, like a diamond that has many, many facets. And when you see that all the facets within the diamond, and comprehend 0 point then as being my actual union with paradise, with heaven, with the Garden of Eden, with life in the planet as it is, with the perfection of my being, all the things that they will come into your mind as being the perfection of an idealized consciousness. The perfection of an idealized consciousness is the 0 point connection to life. We are simultaneous with life. So 0 point has many connotations, and I'm going to go through them today so we can see the many formations. So we have here 0 point balance as the metrics of balance. And you understand what that is, are the planes and directions that centralize the human body in three-dimensional space. That's when we study unity in motion, as we become more and more connected to the movements, and the movements become more synchronized with the planes of space and so forth, we are becoming more and more connected to a synergistic sense of awareness that it becomes our natural sensation of self. So I say it one more time, that when we study unity in motion, and you learn the connections, and you learn the path of balance, and you learn to synchronize the path of balance with yourself, and the three senses of the self becomes more connected, we are synergizing our sense of being into another sensation that is the sensation of 0 point balance. Because 0 point balance is the sensation of our being. Yeah, it's whatever, every time that you said, okay, now I'm going to practice, and the moment that you decide, okay, I'm going to practice, where you start is with your sensation of 0 point, even if you know it or you don't know it. But now I'm telling you, you're always starting the sensation of 0 point. Yeah. And the sensation of 0 point, it has only one complexity in the study, that it's not a place that you're going to become like an army. I said, okay, this is where I am in 0 point. Because if you try to refine it too much, and you're crystallizing it in a formation that cannot be 0 point. Because 0 point is actually the closest definition that you have to the totality of the unity within your being. 0 point is the closest definition that you have when you're in the practice with the unity of your being. And it has many connotations. And the first one that we have right now is biomechanical. Yeah, and you understand it already. And we could go with this one. This is the top of the head. This is the right and the left side of the head. This is the release of the neck and the throat, which is the cervical area. This is the right and the left of the arms, centralized at the heart. This is the solar plexus, which is the center of the whole spinal column and its natural extension. The center of right and left of the hip and the pelvic floor that this centralizes the hip joints and the knee joint and so forth. So it is the closest, it is the natural sense definition of your being inside of consciousness. And I use the inside of consciousness because yourself in that moment defines everything. It's not like in the kitchen when you're making tea or cooking something, you're cooking. You're very like I said, okay, am I in 0 point or not 0 point? We're doing what we do in every single moment of the day. But with the practice, we are in 0 point. We are in the best possible sense of unification that your sense of self can bring you to by the very nature of your practice. So it's not separated from any other aspect of your life, but it is the point of refining of your own being. Yeah. So it begins with 0 point, the metrics of balance. Okay. Can I continue with that? We are good. And then 0 point balance, which is the same, but as the metrics of balance and the tree of life. You know that what we already said, that the tree of life is the original imprint of wholeness existing within all the symbol that he says that it was in the Garden of Eden. It's a story, it's a fable. But this particular graphic that we're talking about, that we're seeing here, was preserved from the beginning of time by the elders, especially the Jewish tradition, because it said in that time that concealed within itself the natural return of our human existence to our natural state of being. That's a lot to say. the human existence to our natural state of being. It will be a sense of being that we are connected to everything, that we are in the garden again, or connected to everything, and then we are not just only confined in the human experience, but we are inside of a larger and larger spectrum of consciousness that embraces the whole universe, quantum entanglement, that every single aspect, part of the universe is simultaneous in one system that we call immanent reality, and that is ever present. Yeah. So then, the tree of life is a divine design that, when we begin to incorporate it in the physical body, we begin to perceive it, because the natural resolution that takes place in the neurological, in the biomechanical, and in the mental as a space begin to transmute our sense of self and take us away from the innocent association with a very small part of our human existence. And it puts us inside of a larger system that is a holographic imprint of perfection. The tree of life is the image and the likeness of God. That means that concealed within itself the entire holographic perfection, an entire holographic formation of our perfection. Yeah, so it's an extraordinary thing. So are we okay? Can I continue with it here then? Okay. Then we go the three-dimensional nature of nature of 0-point balance. Okay. Remember that when we're talking about the tree of the metrics of balance, when we throw in about both sides, the metrics of balance as 0-point balance, the 0-point balance as the metrics of balance at the tree of life are the same thing. And then here we go to the three-dimensional nature of 0-point balance. Okay. The symbol that our forefathers give us to discover the natural perfection of ourselves and the tree of life was a two-dimensional symbol, because that was the symbology that we have in the beginning. We can even write a few pages in the two-dimensional paper. That's the design. But the design of the tree of life is actually three-dimensional. So what you see as the tree of life is actually the center of life. Even though we think as in terms of right and left, yeah, and above and below, and the three-dimensionality of 0-point balance, you can see, in this case, for example, you can see the right and the left existing within the matrix. So this will be the tree of life as seen a little bit from the perspective of the left side, so you can see it symmetrical, yeah? And then in this other version that you see here, you see it from the perspective of front and back. In the tree of life, the front and back and the right and the left are three-dimensional expressions of a sphere, the sphere of life, the sphere of 3 dimensions. Yes? So this is important for you to spend a little bit of time, because observing this is very wonderful, because the mind begins to comprehend, okay, the right and the left in the reality of 3 dimensions are equal to the front and the back. And when you said, okay, I'm placing myself at 0 point, that's what you're doing, right and the left, front and back, and above and below. Those 6 directions of space are simultaneous in the sphere of life. The 6 directions of space is what make up 3 dimensions. And 3 dimensions is what make up 0 point. Yeah? I'll stay there for a second, yeah? 0 point means nothing other than our 3-dimensional relationship to the 3-dimensional universe, our union with 3 dimensions. And it's made up of the union of 6 directions of space, yes? And remember that when we did it in our evolutionary unfolding of knowledge, we needed 6 directions of space to be able to have a symbol of what a sphere is. Yes, because a sphere is just a circle, it doesn't mean anything. But then when you say front and back, right and left, and above and below, you needed the minimum of 6 directions to be able to form the sphere. But the minimum of the 6 directions is not the sphere. It is the formation of the sphere, but those are the linear exposition of something that it is in its existence, a sphere. So the 6 directions of space is the way they will learn to experience 3 dimensions, if you may. But 3 dimensions exist before the 6 directions of space. It is the given, it's the 0-point reality of the natural movement and moment of life. 0 point is the natural reality of the natural moment and movement of life. Life being the magical gift that we are experiencing when we are born in the planet. We enter life, and with life we enter consciousness, and with consciousness we enter experience. And then our entire life becomes the experience of what is that entering of life for each of us. Yes? And for each of us have different meanings. For us, the entering of life has been happiness, love. For others have been entering life, what in the world I am? Who am I? Why am I doing in this planet Earth, living in Pittsburgh, upon the planet Earth that is rotating around the sun and is in perpetual motion and existed among a celestial existence? But most of the time for the people who live in Pittsburgh, they pass the day, they never think that they're floating in the sky. Most of the people are engaged, oh, I gotta go to the supermarket now, I gotta go up by my rent, I gotta go back home, and blah, blah, blah. And most of the time, the day passes, and sometimes many different times, lifetime passes. Then we never think about what are we doing in the celestial world. In the celestial world, worrying constantly about something that has nothing to do with anything in reality to the whole. Yes, so that's for certain. Some of us came here with the idea of being happy. The happiness, being encounter luck, have family, be in the garden, eat, celebrate, be merry, become older, have grandchildren, and then pass into the next world. Other people came here, all of us came here and said, I got to figure out what is going on because nobody has figured it out. And I had to figure out what Buddha did this and Christ did this and blah, 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 blah. So we created all this one, trying to figure it out what the world was about. And then the third entity was the one who comes here and I said, I'm going to come here to really know the meaning of life and connect myself with the reality, if there is such a thing, that correspond to the essence of my being. Not just only to the little human being that I am, but the totality of myself. Now, those three possibilities are not gradations in relation to being. It's just those are the 3 things that we came as humans through the process. Because those 3 things, happiness, knowledge of self, and re-engagement with the cosmic reality as a whole are simultaneous now in 0 point in the reality of our connection to the new consciousness and reality itself. So for each of us, some of us are experiencing perfection and love and beauty and in our daily life. At the same time that they are becoming awakened that I exist and here I am. And at the same time I say, my God, I'm God. Yeah. And for some of us, I said, I am God. And therefore, now that I'm God, I can really understand more clearly what is myself inside of that and what is my human experience. So we'll experience from the top down or from the bottom up. But everything is simultaneous within ourselves. And it's good to know all these things because what's going to happen to each of us, and I'm sure that it's happening already, is that you're going to spend in 24 hours of a day, you're going to start experiencing your essential nature of happiness, but also your sense of self as the big deal, and then your cosmic self in the middle of 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you go into the supermarket to buy some food. Because we are all living in another field that encompasses all things. And when that experience comes to you, it's important that you put it in context. Oh, I see. In this moment, I'm experiencing a larger part of my being. Now, get on in the line, pay for the food, and take it home. But don't dismiss it. Just recognize that it's coming together. And then right now, I love everybody in my house. I love my flight. I like my husband. I love you. Everything is so wonderful. I'm so happy. And then, oh, I see. I'm experiencing the happiness that exists in my sense of self and my cosmic self. And then so on, you get to really experience the different facets within your being that they are being awakened by your communion with 0 point, which is our communion with the universe. Okay. So then anyway, those true symbols is to depict the three-dimensionality of the metrics. Yeah. There are many things to say about that, because when we start expressing 0 point, the first thing that we have mostly is really right and left. You know what I mean? Because we don't know what front and back means. But when we begin to discover right and left, we recognize that the front and back exist within. And that's the reason that the planes and directions of the movement are really interconnect you with the unity between right and left and front and back, because that's the only way that you can allow the spine to become free from any form of compression. Yes, so that's what we do in the 0 point as those three. This is, don't you think this graphic is beautiful? I love it. I mean, I'm in love with the graphics that we're doing, especially because this is the one that it came first. And then I said, how am I going to convey to you the right and the left is equal to the front and the back, when most of the time thinking only in terms of front, right and left. And then the graphics show me, okay, do the tree of life as a look from the front and the back and just get on with it. Okay, I got it, I did it, and here we go. It's the same. So the two are interconnected as one, and I show you linearly so you can recognize that they have the same value. Yes? More about as it coming forward. 0 point balance as the 10 dimensions, the new consciousness of life. This is another expression of 0 point balance. So the metrics of 0 point balance can be interpreted as structural, you know, and can be interpreted as consciousness. It represents a new field of consciousness in which the spatial sense of ourselves, the emotional sense of ourselves, which is the second one here in the heart, and the pelvis, which is a structural formation of physicality, structural physicality, emotional feeling, love, and space are existing inside of the field in which the consciousness is no longer divided, that exists within the realms of wholeness within wholeness. We live in another dimension, perfect dimension. And you know this, we talk a lot about this. And I think that I would like to talk to you later about it a little bit more, but I don't know today. But you know what ground and consciousness and unity and presence and balance and beauty and self, whole nature, infinite regeneration, and foundation paradise means to you. And if you can really get to spend time with them, what you're really going to spend time is with the content of your mind. What's your mind making about it? What are they? And you can ask questions if you need to, whatever, because it is the whole scenario. And this whole scenario of consciousness, the tree of life, that before you saw as the tree of life, and before you saw as a structure, yeah, the three different versions of 0 point, is really actually the nature of the moment of life. It's simultaneous. This is linear. What I'm telling you is a linear comprehension of a simultaneous field of consciousness. And it's important for us to understand that we don't understand what, because our mind was created inside of the realm of 3 dimensions, and it have discovered itself inside of the linear mode, because that's the way we evolve. Everything, wholeness, can only be comprehended inside of the whole understanding of the linear perspective. And the linear perspective can only be comprehended inside of the comprehension of the whole. That's what is different within us now. Because now, for the first time, we are inside of the linear and the wholeness at the same time. Before, we have never been inside of the wholeness. We've always been inside of the linear, always. When we project the spirituality, when we project in the kingdom of heaven, when we project in God, when we projected the chosen race, when we projected Buddha and all the Dharma, when we projected Muhammad with all, everything was projected inside of the linear perspective, outside of the wholeness. It was an idealized projection of wholeness, but wholeness came into being, I think so, I'm not sure, but I think that it came into being through science, with science discovering quantum entanglement. When science proved, not as a spiritual projection, as a belief or as a desire for knowledge, when he projected the reality that quantum entanglement is a field in which the entire universe is simultaneously interrelated, in which the action occurring at any place within the universe is instantaneously felt in the longest distance. So that we live within a field of consciousness that is not linear, it's simultaneous within itself. So when that happens, which is actually the reality of the new consciousness, we live in a field of wholeness, and through the field of wholeness, we understand the linear process of all things. Before, the linear process of all things and the idea of wholeness was a mystery, because wholeness was constantly diverting us inside of the realms of duality. So when we became free from the realms of duality, and we interconnected with the whole, we live in now in an experience of 0 point, with 0 point is universal, really universal as an existence, not as a higher consciousness and cosmic consciousness or spirit. Is really realistic, universal, and human, planting potatoes in the garden and getting all together at the same time, unifying as the center, as yourself, 0 point balance, the whole field of consciousness. Yeah, the whole field of consciousness is fantastic. I talked to you about it many, many times, and I love it because that is the whole field of consciousness. Let me see how much time I have. I don't have a lot of time, but it's gone so fast. But the whole field of consciousness, I'm going to relearn. The whole field of consciousness are 10 simultaneous expressions of unity, which means there is the whole scenario in which consciousness exists as the perfection of life. In the simultaneity of the 10 dimensions, it's actually the moment of life, 0 point balance. 0 point balance is the moment of life, and it's a simultaneous expression of the 10 dimensions. The 10 dimensions is the whole scenario in which consciousness senses itself as the moment of life. Yeah, and it's fantastic. Yes.
Okay.
You have a question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when I think of quantum physics, you know, and I think of numbers, okay?
It's okay.
So then when we think of the 10 dimensions,
10 dimension.
okay, so that's universal. So is it different when we look at the earth, right? Is it different because I think of the number 12 zodiacs, 12 months, the solstice, the summer, the winter is divided, 12 divided by 4, 3.
Yeah.
So is one like, because we're on earth, that it's divided in 12, but universally it is 10.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
You see the numbers that
I get the question. I think
okay.
I will, forgive me to interrupt you. I think I'll get the question. I think that all that will be answered when we get to the geometry of balance in a few minutes more. So yeah, it will answer for you. But it's important to understand that, and I think we'll get to it too today, is that the 3 dimensions is the 3 aspects of the first triad right here. And the 3 dimensions are 1. This is the first time. It's the original symbol of one of the original symbols within the consciousness. You need the pyramid, the 3 things to be 1. So therefore, 1 can only exist because of 3. And 3 can only exist because of the 1. This is a lot to say, but I'll just tell you that, but then spend time, and we can spend more time with it. I can explain it to you. So the Trinity, the first Trinity is the oneness of 1. But in order to understand 1, you must first understand 3. And when you understand 3, you understand the 1. In order to understand the 3, you must first understand the 10. And when you understand the 10, you really understand the 3, and you really understand the 1, and you are complete with the voyage of mind. Because everything is 1, 3, and 10, 10, 3, and 1. And if you want to, eventually we can do a session with that, and I can tell you more detail about those things. But it will take the whole to get you more clear about that. But you will. I think you already understand what I mean a little bit, no? One free, because everything is 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions means that you need 3 things to be able to have one. You can never, one has no meaning without 3. Because in order to, as I said, to have one, you have 3. And then in order to understand the 3, you understand the 10, which are the 10 decimal numbers from which mathematics create the first partition, from which it divided itself to infinitum, and it creates countless equations of mathematics. But the equation is from 0 to 10. Yeah, the 10 decimal numbers. So 0-point balance as the unity of the 3 senses of the self. The meaning that we are talking today about a 0-point balance can only as a consequence of the union of the 3 senses of the self. And the union of the 3 senses of the self is the integration, I put it centralized differently, the integration of thought, feeling, and action as the natural fulfillment of our human lives. What we're talking here is about the fulfillment of 0 point as the union of the 3 senses of the self. It's the union of my mental, emotional, and physical sense of self, from which has been my entire evolutionary unfolding of my human mind from the beginning of time. My mind having what we call evolution was subject to 3 different interpretations. A conceptual interpretation of reality that manifested the physical world that we know. The emotional sensation of feeling, which is our communion with love and the things that surround it as sensation and feeling. And then the actual physical reality from which we live in simultaneously. We were always living simultaneously, physically, emotionally, and mentally from the beginning of time. Except that from the garden, if you put it from the perspective of the garden as the tree of life, we already were fulfilled in the 3 senses of the self, because the tree of life has 3 crosses. Remember, this is the horizontal and this is vertical, horizontal and this is vertical, horizontal and this. This is the structure of the tree of life. And this horizontal lines that exist within the tree of life is really actually another symbol that forever have existed within our consciousness. It was this symbol in the church. The Christian church, it had an aspect of the Christian church, just as the Jewish tradition have an aspect of the esoteric nature of the Jewish tradition, that it was dedicated to the study of that particular field, that it was not just confined in the simplicity of the human life, humans living their life, but it was more for the dedication of knowledge. So within the church, there are 3 different, the Pope, when he goes into it, carry a mask with 3 different crosses. And what it really means is the knowledge of consciousness, the knowledge of energy, which is love, and the knowledge of physical reality. Those are the knowledge of the 3 worlds. And they are ancient within our study because they were projected at different times. But they became realistically one in the moment of union in 1986. The new consciousness united in one instant the 3 senses of the self that before were always separated as a conceptual interpretation, as an emotional interpretation, and as a physical interpretation. We talk about a lot about it. But now, for the first time, each of us is united within our sense of self. So we have a conceptual understanding of reality, an emotional understanding, an emotional experience of reality, which is love, and then a physical simultaneity, which is 0 point. 0 point means a physical simultaneity and the union with the energy of life and the consciousness of reality, which is God. So the 3 senses of itself are ever present within our lives. This is a big deal, the 3 senses of the self. Yeah? The 3 senses of your being. When we came to this time, well, all of you in Pittsburgh and in the world right now, you came as the the tree of life of humanity. So we are, in this particular moment, the renewal, not the renewal. Let me see how can I put it. We are the renewal of consciousness, of course, but we were, when we were in the dualistic interpretation, the cutting edge of the consciousness, trying to understand the nature of its existence. Yeah, humanity in this particular time, in the time of our lives, for 50 years or whatever time that we are in our life, it was the time that have quickened to extraordinary degree the entire human unfolding of consciousness, so it could merge as it did in 1986 with the totality of the field of the new consciousness. Yeah, are you okay with me? I'm going to continue with this. So now, I'm going to show you 4 different graphics that represent 4 different specific interpretations of 0-point balance. This is the interpretation from the centering of the human body. Yes, this is all the centerings, 21 centerings. That is the mind comprehending the centering of the heart right here, you know, with the right and the left of the shoulders. This is the simple way. The right and the left of the head, centralize it at the head and the crown. The natural length of the throat, you know, connecting the whole system. Then the union of right and the left of the arms at the center of the heart. It's not just only the arms, it interconnects the elbows, the wrist, and so forth, because those 6 joints is the union between those 6 joints, and its alignment and movement is the centralization of the heart. Yeah, so the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulders connecting the heart is actually the centralization of the heart. So involve those centerings. Then we have the centering of the solar plexus, yeah, which is the center of the spine. Then we have the right and the left and the hips. That's the way that I begin to experience the earth. The right and the left is the horizontal centralization of the center of the earth. And this involves 6 joints, those 4 joints, again, those 4 joints, interconnected with the pelvic floor and so forth. So those are the 19 connections that we are living every single moment of our daily life. We move, that's the way we live every single moment, connecting to those connections. But for most of us, we didn't have any way to relate to it because we were never told in the school that the motion of our life, the motion of our being was relative to the motion of all those joints. We never learned. We learned dance, we learned to exercise, we learned to run, but we learn things as a physical, but we never learned the actual existence of the makeup of the anatomical planes and so forth. In school a little bit, but not necessarily. Yeah. So we all received a personal understanding and experience of motion because nobody taught us. When we were children, as a child, we have a primal reflex, which is the primal reflex of our physical sensation that already carry within itself the genetical memory of the mind, the emotion, and the physical reality of the DNA within us. Yeah? So we came into this world with a memory. That's the reason that certain children move like their parents and look like their parents and your grandparents and so forth. We are the continuity of a tree of life that in the beginning was at the beginning of time, but in the physical existence is kind of a simplistic because it's only the people, the most recent people in our lives, you know. So anyway, when we are children, then we start getting in 4 legs, and then we start to walk, and then we start to move, and it took months to be able to gather all those reflexes. But we don't remember because we were not conscious of any of that. We did the best we could, and then we start walking, and then we start running, and so forth, and then we got on a bicycle, and we had to learn many things to synchronize. So the entire history of our beginning life was to synchronize many reflexes so we can begin to partake of the very motion that our parents were doing around the house, and then playing, and then playing, and then that, and so on and on and on. So we develop a unification of sense within all these joints. and connections in the body. And then the study of energy and motion is simple because we already start in 0 point with all those connections. But it's good to understand them. So you can say, okay, every time that I go into 0 point, or I go to foundation, or I define in crown or infinity, what I'm really defining is the relationship of all those joints and my legs and my arms, and the relationship of my spine. So I can begin to figure it out if I experience 3 dimensionals, and if I release the spine and I begin to get in the center of a space. To be in the center of a space, which is the center of 0 point, is a divine thing, because it means that you are in the center of the universe. The center of is in which the center of, we say that the universe is made up of a space, mostly a space, and that we are made up of mostly a space. So everything is a space. Also, space represents the release of the brain. So the brain is not compressed within the reality, because the compression of the brain in the linear expression of consciousness have created a sense of, let me see, a sense of, what's the word? Concreteness, a sense of concreteness, yes? Some of us are very concrete. And most of the time when we're very concrete, well, that's it. This is what it is, and that's it, no more. Concreteness means that there is doesn't have any space or any other possibility other than what we think. Yes, and it creates a lot of problems, because you can go forever trying to really tell somebody something, but they will say no, because their mind is concrete, the sensation is concrete. So as we begin to understand space and release and fluidity and motion, the mind dissolves from his own compressional, I shouldn't use the word compressional, his own interpretation of concreteness as self. And then when the mind releases, that's when the third eye opens. Whatever we call the third eye, and the heart open and everything, it means that the system is opening itself like a flower to be able to allow the space to be able to give us new awareness and sensations of life, then manifest as epiphany, sensation, blessings, love, anything that we wanted to, that we consider to be beautiful. So then inside of the beauty, inside of the love, inside of the epiphany, our immediate connection is to open to others and to see others, not from the perspective of rigidity, because in rigidity, everything is, everything is righteous. Yeah, we understand that it's innocent, but rigidity was created inside of the consciousness in order to self-preserve, the idea that we needed to be constantly survive, the survival of the human, the survival of the system, the survival of the religion, the survival of the wealth, of the survival of the keeping of the consciousness in a state of non-sin. There were all these things that we created that became rigid in time in order to preserve what we had. And most of the time it created a lot of complexity, because it kept us in the same place, in our evolution for thousands and thousands of years. So then now, with the new consciousness, our consciousness is becoming more and more fluid and more expanded naturally. Yes, especially if we begin to recognize that all the different stages of consciousness that was projected in linear time by the masters, by Buddha, by Christ, by Allah, by the worship and idea of Messiah, and so forth. All those stages of consciousness that were existed with, the certain people have access to it through their own dedication. They became an open field for everyone. Now everyone, samadhi is in the presence of every single being, because it's no longer subject to a projection of consciousness. It is actually the consciousness itself that houses all those stages as a natural sensation of the self. So everybody is enlightened, everybody is in samadhi, everybody is Satchidananda, everybody is the Christ, but it is the actual experience of that reality. Because remember, Satchidananda samadhi, in all those stages, were only certain moments within the human life in which the master could really live in it. Yes? Buddha lived inside of the knowledge of Buddha, but most of the time he suffered enormously because he was a teacher going from town to town, teaching to people who have no idea what he was talking about. And eventually he died because I think he ate something that he knew it was bad, but he didn't want to say no, and he ate it and died. So all the masters were people, human people who lived momentarily in their state of consciousness, and they created a religion and taught all the disciples and everything. But the master, they must have suspected that the consciousness were continual. But we never had it before as a continuity, except now. Yes, Christ, when he was here, was in the form of a man. Yeah, in the form of a man that I was born as a child and so forth. Forget that one. And Christ have to awaken inside of himself in order to pursue his spirituality. So he had a very difficult time in the beginning because every time we talked, nobody understood anything. Yeah, because can you imagine how simplistic we were in that time, right? Very, very simple. The mind was like meat and potatoes. That's it, very little. So he talked in terms of paradigms. Parabolas, right? Parabolas. Is parabolas the word English? Yeah, parabolas. Am I doing right?
Parables.
Yeah.
Parables. Okay, thank you. Parables. In terms of parables, because nobody could never say what it was, because he himself. Remember that Christ himself, as a being, was an unfolding aspect of consciousness inside of humanity. So he had certain moments that they were absolutely divine. We have access in the garden to heaven and to the Father and so forth. But most of the time was all like trying to get these people to really live and thinking and understand and living in an extraordinary love of poverty and confusion. So the last stages of his life was stages in which transcended, so to speak, the physical mind, and he became celestial in the very moment that he died. That's the story. This is a parable. This is a story. But that's what it was. So remember that all the masters as they existed before were divine beings, but they never got to experience what you are experiencing now. The master didn't have the possibility of experience the continuity of consciousness in which all aspects of knowledge, sensation, they were considered extraordinary, like Satchidananda in ecstasy and samadhi, were moments of extraordinary lucidity, but they were not existent within the moment itself as the field that you are available now. Yeah, it's a different world that we're talking about. We are not talking about recreating the sensations of the masters. We're talking about the fulfillment of the masters. We are the fulfillment of the master didn't get to experience what we are experiencing at all. They suffered enormously. It was very, very horrible. It's hard, very difficult. So anyway, so then this is the one that I tell you, the 20 physiological centers of the body. Now we're going to go to 0 point balance as the 21 centuries within the 10 dimensions and the 3 senses of the self. Yeah, I think that we have a question.
Yeah, Cristiam, so what are you saying is we have evolved to this point because we couldn't have experienced it before because we were in duality.
We were in duality, we were interpreting everything in duality, and now we are inside of a field that no longer exists within the fields of duality. It exists within the dimensions of wholeness within wholeness, which is unity.
So can we say that we've evolved to a different phase?
You could say that, but in reality, we cannot evolve to that place. That was the innocent illusion that we had in evolution, that we thought that we needed to evolve to a certain place. When we connected to the consciousness, we recognized that the consciousness was always present. It always is, and it will always will be. So the idea of evolution was only existing inside of the linear mind. In the reality that we are, everything is. We cannot evolve more because we are inside of union. So unity doesn't have evolution. It has experience of wholeness forever, infinity, but it will have, it's not subject to the evolution of consciousness. It's subject to the fulfillment of consciousness.
So what we're saying is it was always there. We have just
We couldn't experience
connected.
it. Exactly, we couldn't connect it. Now, do you understand what I mean? The difference between the fulfillment of consciousness and the evolutionary interpretation of consciousness. Do I need to say more about that?
No.
This is a very delicate understanding of the consciousness that if your mind begins to interpret it, a light will go in, and the light, when it goes into your mind, implies that you are more present in the now, that you're becoming more present and you're free from the linear interpretation of the mind that innocently think that the memories of the past are more important than the present moment. It's an innocent interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's important for you to if you would like to contemplate the idea of the linear consciousness being based in the idea of evolution, which was true. It needed to evolve until the moment of union. Without the evolution, we have never united in 1986 to the reality itself. It would be impossible because the linear evolution was the whole scenario of premises that when they got completed in the instant of the harmonic conversion, exploded into the union of itself. And then in the union of itself, we are not evolving in the same way that we were evolving as human, because we are in the presence of union, unity, wholeness within wholeness. So we forever will discover the different stages of perfection that existed in wholeness within wholeness. But it will be different than evolution, because in evolution, we were always evolving inside of cause and effect, which means inside of suffering, being happy and being suffering, dying and being reborn, connecting and not connecting. I like you, but I not like you, but this and like that. So we were always in the skipping sense of the frame itself. So we're never in the whole. So evolution was the beautiful voyage of discovering wholeness, which became wholeness. And when it became wholeness, evolution becomes connection to wholeness. And connection to wholeness, it will always be more, but it will be inside of a certain, but it is inside of a certain understandings, experience, and feelings of consciousness that will always be more perfect and more beautiful and more wonderful, but it will never be inside of cause and effect.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
It's important to understand. It's no longer inside of cause and effect. So it will never be suffering. It will never be, I mean, in the physical world, if it is, you'll see it, but we are getting free from that. We are releasing that because our mind is in the presence of creation. It's not in the presence of relativity. Relativity was the act of witnessing what we were perceiving and categorizing it. Wholeness is being what we are perceiving it and empowering as it unfolds into perfection. So the mind no longer categorizes, the mind fulfills.
Cristiam,
Yes.
I have a question or just a statement. So does that also go with past, present, and future? The statement of past, present, and future is a linear idea?
Yes, past, present, and future is a linear idea that we had inside of the evolutionary nature of consciousness, linear consciousness. When we reunited with wholeness, past, present, and future became 3 dimensions, the trinity of life, and it became the moment of life. And therefore, the moment of life ceased to be, No, the moment of life no longer was relative. The moment of life became the eternal moment. That's what the difference between the temporal moment and the eternal moment. The temporal moment was the moment that we were experiencing duality, which was lovely and beautiful because, as I said, it was perfect because it's what it took us back into wholeness. But in duality, the moment most of the time was very rarely perceived. We were always going from the past, projecting into the future. Certain moments we experience the moment. Sometimes when, as I said to you, the moment was experiencing in a certain moment of stillness when we were in nature, certain moments when we were connected to the sea, we were making love with someone or we were in love, when we were eating something that was extraordinarily delicious, or when we had an epiphany and connected to God momentarily, and the third eye opened one of the veils and said, oh my God, yeah, oh, wow, fantastic. And then, you know, we have many, many different things that we went into it. But in reality, all the things became not relative in that sense anymore. Now, relativity disappeared, and the moment became the conduit for the whole field. The whole field of wholeness exists within the natural moment, which is now the eternal moment, and the eternal moment is the whole field. That is the reason that 0-point balance is the simultaneity of your being and your expression of 0 point. Now, the expression of 0 point is our communion with the moment. You understand? 0 point is the moment of life. It's not 0 point like a concept. I mean, all things are become reunited. They are only real in the moment of life. 0 point is my connection to the moment of life, which is the connection to yourself, to your heart, to your mind, to your feelings, to the universe, to the geometry, to 3 dimensions, to the tree of life. All those symbols that we're giving to you are different expressions of the whole scenario of your mind, understanding how the whole scenario exists within the natural moment, which is the eternal moment. And the eternal moment exists inside of the field of universal existence. And as a whole field of universal existence is unfolding into infinity. We are unfolding into infinity. That's, remember in the celebration we said central crown. The central crown is the natural ascension that exists, the natural ascension existing within the moment of life, with the natural ascension existing within the movement of life, right? Remember, I don't, in this moment, this is what it is. Mary Pat is the movement, it's a central crown, the natural ascension existing within the movement there is the movement of life. I think I have it in some place. So ascension, expansion, universal expansion is all the same thing. The moment of life is the constant ascension of universal existence. The moment of life is the constant ascension of universal existence. Now, just think about it for a moment. If we can begin to really be in the presence of that knowing, we will never get sick. We will never suffer. We will never. How can you have pain if you're ascending with the universal existence? If you're connected to everything, you know, how can you? Everything. That's what heaven means. Heaven means your natural connection with all things, ascending into the light with the universe. And all the things that I'm telling you are linear because I'm explaining an event that occurs in one instant, the instant of my life, the moment of my life, 0 point, the moment of my life ascending with existence. Yeah. So anyway, these are the interpretation of 0 point balance as the 21 centuries. And this one is made up by the 10 dimensions. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. By the 3 senses of the self, which make a 13, 11, 12, and 13. And by the joints of the elbows and hands, because the shoulders are already existing within the 10 dimensions. Yeah. And then by the joints of the legs, the 4 joints of the leg, that they are connecting to the hips and to foundation. So this is another way of understanding 0 point balance. By the 10 dimensions, the 3 senses of the self, 13, and then 4 in the arms and 4 in the legs. It's another way to comprehend it. Yeah, and beautiful. especially if we really clear comprehend that the 10 dimensions of life as the field of consciousness is the union of the three senses of the self. And the union of the three senses of the self is the 10 dimensions of life as consciousness. They are the same thing. Yes. So when you study, when you're learning, when you embody, when you're experiencing, you are understanding the nature of your consciousness, a whole scenario of consciousness existing inside of the universal unity of life. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. 0-point balance as the 21 centuries as biomechanical reality. This is another interpretation. This is what we use mostly in unity and motion. This is our unity and motion interpretation of 0 point. The 7 centers, center of the heart, and the 6 joints of the arms, that's what you define in every single connection. Every single connection is the centralization of your heart, the 7 centers, yeah? And then the 7 centers of the leg as physical reality, centralized in the hip. That's what we're always experiencing in 0 point, in our experience of unity and motion. And then this is the Trinity, which is the right and the left of the head, comprehending, understanding your relationship to space. This is relationship to space, speaking in simple terms, relationship to space, relationships to energy, relationships to form. Those are the 3 senses when you practice unity and motion. Yeah, and then those three senses, those connections are united at 19. This is the information that you have right now. As 19 in the throat, excuse me, as 20 in the solar plexus, as 21 in the pelvic floor. So returning a little bit right here, you see this is the information. 21, the 21 biomechanical centering expresses as 4, which is this one, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4 being the center of the mind. Yeah, remember, central crown. Yeah, the center of the mind. So there are 4, 7, 7, and 3. It's easy way to remember. The centerings of my body are 4 from above, 7 as the heart, 7 as the pelvis, and 3. The 19 being, and here you can read it, 19, the centering, the 19 centering, the 4th dimension centering of the throat, the 20 centered the 7th dimension centering the solar plexus, the 21 centering the 10th dimension expressing the center of symmetry, right here, in the centralization, the center of symmetry. So in this definition of 0-point balance, you have a trinity, the right and the left, of your legs, centralizing in the pelvis, right here, in the foundation and the pelvis. And this is the center between the two, right? At the trinity, 1, 2, 3. This is the center, 1, 2, the trinity, right here. Another trinity, the trinity of your heart. And in here, you have the trinity of your mind, the right and the left of the brain, synchronize it with the vertical extension of your being, centralize it at the head itself, providing the third eye right here, the third eye, the heart, and the solar plexus. So this is another way to explain it, and you see it from the perspective of the movements themselves. Yeah, how am I doing? I think I have to finish very soon. I didn't get to it. And this is 0-point balance, another version of 0-point balance, as seen from the perspective of the 5 triads of the tree of life. You know it because you have seen it before. But the first triad is that, crown consciousness of unity as whole awareness, the whole mind of life. Balance, beauty, and love. Balance, beauty, and self, centralized as love, the boundless feeling of life. Whole nature, infinite regeneration, foundation paradise, balance as physical reality, the ecstasy of life. And then the union of these 3 senses, thought, feeling, and action, as consciousness, the 4th dimension. The 4th dimension, the now. The 4th dimension is the eternal now, the new consciousness, now. And then the 7th dimension is actually the experience of the eternal now, of the now. Without you, the now doesn't exist. Yeah, so we are the center of the tree of life is the reinstated perfection of our human nature, because the self, which in that time was called Adam, as the perfect expression of the human image and the likeness, preserve it forever in time, and renew it now in this moment, after thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, millions of years, is now the center of the self. You are the master of your natural existence, perfect human, and God itself. But free this time, because God itself, it could never be aggrandizing or control others. God itself is the perfection of all things. He doesn't have any power as he was experiencing inside of duality. Yeah, God has no power. He can never have judgment. He can never. It give you everything. God is the reality of your full expression, feeling, and comprehension of the forever given kingdom of heaven itself, and the Garden of Eden. Everything is you, as you are. Okay, so then now, from now on, we go to all these places, but I think that I don't know what to say, because I think we should stop here. I wanted, oh, Mary Pat, do you know if I go, which one is the graphic that you were talking to me about it? If I go to show you to you right now, if I go down, tell me which one is the one you're talking about. We're missing one graphic that it happened any once in a while, then mysteriously disappear into the internet and then appears again. I think that the one you're talking about is either this one, or either this one, or either this one. Is it possible? Or either this one. Those four, there are four different interpretations of unit 0.2. This is this? Do you know? I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. I'm sorry, darling. You're mute.
I muted myself. There.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All right. Do you know if it's this one?
No, it's not that one.
This one? The 0-point balance, the cell, the fountain of life. If you know if it's this one, the fountain of life.
It was a. Shoot,
Okay. It wasn't this one.
Remember what I was looking at? No, not that.
Okay. All right. So we don't know. So we'll find out more next time. I'm missing this graphic, which I think is on the internet. Let me see. 0-point balance as the 7 centers. The 7 centers. This one. Yeah.
Cristiam,
Yes.
see
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll have to.
where it says the 7 centers? Just click on that
I'm
line.
sorry. Oh.
Click on that line and it might open it.
Oh, yay! See, everything is known. Yes, isn't that fantastic? So anyway, these are the 7 centers. The 7 centers that make up self-equilibrium. Yeah? And anyway, but I need to stop now, because we're going to get into trouble. But I just want to explain that these are the 7 centers. I want to talk to you about next time that we get together. We'll continue with that. And the 7 centers, I just want you to use it as an example. This line that you see here in the center, right here, is the central line of equilibrium, right? You know that, and it's the center of 3 dimensions. And it's the center of the sphere of life. And it's the center of the tree of life, yeah? And I wanted to show you, I want to spend time to recognize that this line that you see as being 1 is in reality 3. Because it is a reality that you see that the actual depth of the sphere, it will exist in the front, it will exist in the back, it will exist in the front, it will exist in the back, it will exist in the front, it will exist. So it will be equal in relation to front and back and right and left. So this line, even though it seems to be 1, if it is perfectly at the center, you will see it as 1. But if you see it from the front, you will see it as 3, which will be, you will see the tree of life. You will see the tree of life inside of that line. But anyway, it's an exercise to be able to really use your mind. But anyway, so I did the best I could in the sense that we got to only to the first triad here. But you can see that any of those graphics, because each of those graphics of 0 point self-contains everything, and everything self-contains the graphic of 0 point. But it's very wonderful for you to spend time with them, because the mind, the new mind, actually the new consciousness, it has a whole scenario of understanding that is not just based on a statement. It's not just said, okay, this is the way it is, and it doesn't have any dogma. The linear consciousness had a lot of dogmas. You make a statement, this is the way it is. The new consciousness understands everything and can explain everything because it is everything. So it doesn't have any dogma of actualization of expression as in a statement. It comprehends what it says. Yeah, and it's beautiful because what it means that whatever you don't know in the moment, in the new mind, you may not know it, but your mind is going to show it to you, or somebody will call you on the phone, or somebody will say a piece of paper will arrive and it has the very thing that you're asking. Whatever you're asking will be, your wish is my command, as Carolina says. Your wish is my command. That's, if you have to define the natural existence of the new consciousness, is the wish, your wish is my command. Because whatever you're looking for, you created it to give to yourself before you even thought that you need it. Everything in the new consciousness is the natural fulfillment of your being, because God gave you that always. But in evolution, we didn't know, and it took a long time to figure it out, or to know that God was the very breath of our existence. Because we make many things out of it. But we have moments and we knew that. I think that people who take drugs, that's why they're experienced. Not to foment drugs about here, because we are. But you understand that people who take drugs, the only reason they take drugs, because they have moments in which they become free from the linear mind. You do comprehend that, right? Yes. So that takes away the judgment. But the complexity is if you're taking a drug, then you come down from it and you're back to the linear mind. And every time you come back to the linear mind, it's more painful than it was before if you don't know yet that you're already free. Yes, so you can begin little by little. Everyone who takes drugs eventually won't, because the only drug that is really existing is the moment of life. You are the ascension. There is no other more beautiful drug than ascension, because it's paradise, the kingdom of heaven. So anyway, I love you. I feel great. I think that I wanted to ask you to please keep looking to this. It's a lot, because 0 point in itself is not all connections of unity and motion are 0 point, but 0 point in itself represents your actual union with yourself and with everything that you ever wanted to be united with, and you have it already. So it's just beautiful. It's a divine design in which you are the natural expression of the new world. You are creating the new world at the same time that you're receiving yourself. It is based on the 10 dimensions, which is light, consciousness, unity, beauty, love, self. All the dimensions, they are beautiful. So anyway, this time, I wanted to tell you that we are all celebrating Thanksgiving. And this Thanksgiving is different because we have gone through a lot of complexity the last 4 years of our life. The last few years have been very, very complex, because when the consciousness became present, the presence of the consciousness as it became present have to quicken the very different stages of unconsciousness that existed within our sense of self. One of the ways to recognize is that we were all racist in some degree or another, because that's the story of the consciousness. We were all trying to get power and one another. So there were many, many different things that needed to take it out of the system, because it keep producing sickness. It keep producing viruses, it keep producing senses. So we are now in a moment of transition in which enter the new world, a new government, a new world, a new reality. Actually, we've been there for 30 years. but it have taken a long time because our consciousness could not recognize it. Yeah. Because if we recognize it, we put it back into the spiritual world, in the 7 dimensions of the 7 veils, in the 7 ascensions of the 7 houses, and everything will constantly, innocently disconnect you from the now. It will always be something that will happen. So that's the difference now. That everything is in the now. Nothing will exist in the future, because if you can only be in the future if you are in the now. If you are not in the now, you're innocent in the projection of what I think that is, but it's not really the future. It's actually the recreation, the innocent recreation of the same complexity. And so it's different. So this time, since we are in the grace of the of celebrating now Thanksgiving, we are reuniting the beginning and the end as the renewal. So originally Thanksgiving is the grace of plentiness. You will receive it as food, you know, the harvest, the celebration of the harvest and the food, the celebration of plentiness. That's the reason everybody loves it, that we get together with families and so forth. This time we can't get together with family because it's too complex for the whole family, for everything. So we are in sequester in some degree or another. And sequester has been lovely. I loved it for me because it allowed me to be with everything instead of thinking that I have to do everything. So in sequester, I get to be with everything instead of doing everything. So I love it. So now what happens is the celebration of Thanksgiving is actually the celebration of the new world, if you're thinking about it, because the entire history of the celebration of the harvest was for only one reason, to take us back into the actual harvest, which is the new world, the universal world, heaven, the Garden of Eden, everything. So we are inside of it. So I would like it, if you would like it to be, I'm going to do that, that to remember that Thanksgiving is actually the new consciousness and the new world and the new you, yourself, that you get to be in the Thanksgiving of finally you are here. It took a long time. When you think about it, you know, can you imagine?
Yay!
Oh my God. So anyway, I love you. I'm going to, I love you. I'm going to, please write if you have any question. We'll complete it next time. All those beautiful things to tell you about, all those beautiful things to show you. It's knowledge, because in the new consciousness we have is the knowledge of eternal time, as different than the knowledge of temporal time. The knowledge of temporal time has the wisdom that we develop in order to merge with reality. And now that we are in reality, we are the knowledge of eternal time. So we are constantly involved in the perfection of our the wholeness and all that. Yeah, I love you. I adore you. Enjoy everything. I miss you already.
I need to say something, please.
Yes. Yes.
December 14th is our last
Yes.
emotion of this year. And so I am with Cristiam last session. I don't know what people's intentions are about going forward. I'm wondering if somebody else would like to take care of